Saving Edward. It was summer on Sodor, and the engines were busy taking passengers and goods all over the island. Thomas, Gordon, and the other engines were happy to be so useful. But Edward wasn't happy. He was worried because he didn't feel well. He wheezed as he puffed along, and steam hissed out of his cylinders. One morning, the Fat Controller went to Tidmouth Sheds. He had jobs for Edward and Thomas. "Edward, I want you to take a special delivery of fruit and vegetables from the docks to Knapford," he said. "Thomas, I want you to go to the docks and shunt Edward's trucks." Thomas and Edward puffed to the water tower to take on water, but Edward just couldn't stop wheezing. "You don't sound well," said Thomas. "I can't get up steam properly," hissed Edward. "But please don't tell anyone, Thomas. I don't want the Fat Controller to know." Edward puffed to the docks, but it took him a long time to get there because he could only go slowly. As he wheezed along, he felt more and more worried. What if he was too weak to pull his crane? He would be no use at all. Must keep going, he wheezed. At the docks, Thomas shunted Edward's trucks for him, and soon he was ready to go. Edward puffed as hard as he could, but the train moved very slowly. Then it stopped. "I'm sorry," he wheezed. "I'm not a really useful engine anymore. I'll just have to go for a scrap." Thomas wanted to help his old friend. "I'll do my other jobs first," he told him. "Then I'll come back and pull the train for you." Poor Edward. He could only stand and wait for Thomas to come back. Thomas did his other jobs as fast as he could. "Hurry up! Hurry up!" he told the troublesome trucks. "What for? What for?" snapped the trucks. "For Edward," said Thomas, biffing them into a siding. When Thomas got back to the docks, Edward was very pleased to see him. "I'll be back for you soon," said Thomas, then puffed off with Edward's train. But Edward's train was very heavy, and Thomas had been working hard all day. He was very tired, but he didn't want to let Edward down, so he puffed and chuffed and huffed along as fast as he could. When Thomas pulled into Knapford Station, the Fat Controller was waiting. Why are you pulling this train?" he asked. "Where is Edward?" He took on the wrong sort of coal," said Thomas. "The wrong sort of coal?" boomed the Fat Controller. "Nonsense, Thomas! I'll speak to Edward about this later." He was so cross that he gave poor Thomas another job to do. When Thomas didn't come back for him, Edward wheezed slowly home. He stopped for a rest, and Gordon told him what the Fat Controller had said to Thomas. Edward felt very bad. He wanted to put things right, so he hissed and wheezed all the way to Knapford. His fire felt feeble. His wheels felt weak, but he didn't give up. When he puffed into the station, he spoke to the Fat Controller. "It's all my fault," he said. "I asked Thomas not to tell anyone I couldn't work. I was afraid of being no use and being sent for scrap." "You should always tell me if you have a problem," said the Fat Controller. "You are a hard-working engine, Edward. A really useful engine. You must go to the fitters' yard right away. They'll mend you and you'll be back at work in no time at all." Thomas went with Edward, who was happy again now that he knew he'd soon be as good as new. Thomas and Edward had both learned an important lesson that day. "Even when it's hard," said Edward. "It's always best to tell the truth," said Thomas. "Peace!"